What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new Denzel Washington film, The Equalizer 2. The Equalizer 2 is directed by Anton Fuqua, just like the first, stars Denzel Washington and Pedro Pascal, and is the follow-up to the first Equalizer films. To sum these films up in a very simple way, it's a guy who is an extremely well-trained super soldier who decides to use his insane knowledge of combat and fighting to help everyday people who are in a bad way. And this film is not really much different than that, except for it revolves around entirely one of his few friends that he has in the world being murdered, and them deciding that he wants to hunt down the people that perpetrated this murder and make them pay for what they did. Now, just like with the first Equalizer movie, I think that the film's action is pretty solid. It's well choreographed, it's well filmed, Fuqua does a solid job with it. They do some interesting things with the way that they film it in slowing down the time and kind of making his extremely technical motion seem more viable when you're able to slow it down and see it from that angle. But the other thing is they don't do that too much, so they still keep it at a solid pace because you want it to feel like this guy is so much better than everyone else that he's fighting. And I think that that really worked super well in this film, just as it did in the first, and I think Denzel really sells those action sequences, which helps a lot. And then, as I said, Fuqua, I think, does a very solid job directing the film. He doesn't really blow me away or anything. There are a few sequences in the film that are filmed very well, but for the most part, it's a very by-the-books action movie where all of the non-action sequences are very bland and filmed in a very standard manner, and then even some of the action sequences aren't really that exploratory in the way that they're chosen to be directed. They're pretty standard close-up, quick-cut stuff, but nothing too shaky or terrible. You can still see what's going on, but it's just not very impressive. And then, as you would expect, Denzel Washington gives a very good performance. Obviously, this performance isn't like his performance in Fences. He doesn't have anywhere near as much meat on the bone to work with on this performance, but he very much sells the idea that he is this guy who is so good at killing people that you should be absolutely terrified if you know that he's coming after you. And I think that he does that very well. He sells the action, the few actually dramatic sequences that do take place in the film revolving around his character. He does very well in those as well. As we all know, Denzel Washington is an extremely talented actor, so it's not shocking at all that he did a good job with this movie. And that's about all of the good things that I have to say about The Equalizer 2. This movie struggled a lot to me. I think that this film was very weak compared to the first one. Not to say I think the first one is this fantastic film, but it very much so embodies what you want out of a fun action movie, and I think this one got away from that a lot. For one thing, this movie's story is extremely predictable. Me and my friend that went and saw this both pretty much had the whole story figured out within like 15-20 minutes of this 2-hour-long movie, and we weren't wrong. And that's a big problem. If you want to make something seem predictable but twist it, that's awesome. But this film doesn't do that. It's just like, oh, that seems like this is going to go this direction, and then it does, and you're like, oh, I just figured that out that quickly and then had really no interest in the rest of the story in this film. The script, for the most part, is also very bland. As I said, it's extremely predictable, but even not just the primary focus of the story, there's all these forced side characters that just don't really feel like they fit in the film, and then some of them don't even feel like they serve a purpose. They're just kind of there to be in the movie with Denzel, and they don't do anything to further the story or add anything to his character specifically that we didn't already know, and I just kind of felt like they were boring aspects added to this film to increase the length and try to add something that they ended up adding nothing to. And then the film, it isn't very heavy on special effects, but the few special effects that there are look pretty rough. Specifically, there's a lot in the big final action sequence, and they are not great. Like, it's pretty blatantly obvious that it's filmed on like a sound stage in LA probably, and it was kind of a struggle in some of those sequences to watch it because I wanted to feel invested in the action sequences because I was invested in Denzel's character. He's about the only thing that you care about when you watch these movies, and I felt like even watching him, I was kind of just like, man, this doesn't look great. Like, I can really tell how fake this all looks, and it's really pulling me out of this action sequence. And then let's talk about the action, which to me is the biggest problem with this film. Not that the action is bad that's in it, it's just that there's barely any in it. This is a 2-hour-long film that has maybe a handful of action sequences. And if you've ever seen The Equalizer 1, you know Denzel's character kind of prides himself on how quickly he can dispatch bad guys. So when an action sequence lasts 30 seconds, and you only have 5 in the whole movie, and I would say only one of those goes longer than maybe like a couple minutes, it really feels like this film is very boring. And that's my biggest problem with it, is I thought the first Equalizer was fun. You got to see Denzel save a girl and kill some people that were bad guys, and he did it in dope ways. And this one decided to add in all these other story elements, all these extra side characters and little things that I think they thought would add depth to the film and to the story and the lead character that Denzel is playing. But instead, it just bogs down this 2-hour-long action movie that has less than 30 minutes, I would say by a long shot less than 30 minutes of action in it. It's probably like maybe 10 or 15 minutes of total action in this movie, and that is criminal. That is criminal for a film that is supposed to be an Equalizer movie. I'm gonna give The Equalizer 2 a D. Like I said, I enjoyed the first Equalizer, and if you've never seen it, I'd recommend that one, but honestly, I think you can fully and wholly skip this one in theaters. When it gets added to Netflix or something, you could check it out if you really want to, but I don't think this film has very much to offer. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this review, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of The Equalizer 2, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.